We're back.
We're back.
What's up, Anna? Buongiorno.
Buongiorno, Dasha. Wait, do you say buena notte?
Buena notte.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's more appropriate.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
I'm
It's good to be back.
impressed that you were podcasting today, fresh off of a flight.
I'm a little jet lagged.
Yeah.
But I slept on the plane.
Yeah.
And then I woke up and had 5 shooters of vodka and fell back asleep. I had
Wait, when did you get in?
At like 1.
Did you fly business class?
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm in a union. I'm a worker.
Yeah. As a worker,
I have to fly business class. I'm very tan, as you can.
Yeah, you look great.
Can tell. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Congrats.
I've been
on the
getting a lot of sun.
Yeah.
And you're kind of onto something with the no sunscreen. Once you get like a base kind of going, there's no need. You're just harming your gains.
No, I know. I agree. Well, like, the thing is, like, my perspective on this is that, there was no sunscreen for millennia, and all of a sudden all this new product appears. And I actually think that I know people flip out when I say sunscreen is bad for you. I think that there's probably cancer causing stuff in the sunscreen, but there's cancer causing stuff in literally everything. So it's like, pick your poison.
Well, the sun itself.
Yeah. And the sun causes cancer, but but my feeling is like,
No, totally. I remember during COVID, there was some discourse around like how you have to wear sunscreen even inside.
You do,
because
if you walk by a window.
Yeah, because the sun will stream in through the windows and harm your skin. And I was like, okay, that sounds like big
insane.
Sunscreens telling some lies. But I mean, I guess we'll see how.
Well, I actually started using sunscreen because I'm back on the retin-A. So I also don't want to walk back my gains.
Right.
Of not being hyperpigmented.
Right. Of course. Yeah, I did take a break from retinol knowing that I would be under the Tuscan sun.
Yeah, smart thinking.
And yeah, worth it.
Yeah, it's cool. It's great to get a base tan.
God, it's
that's the hardest part. It's just hard to get like an even initial coat,
I've got some tan lines.
That's cool. Yeah. But that's sexy. People like that.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. And I think, I'm happy with it. Yeah. I had a great time in Italy. Yeah. Honestly. Oh, the baby.
Anyway, very happy for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
The job and the tan. Do you have any other kind of thoughts, impressions of Italy that
it turned around
could kill some time?
Yeah, definitely. Well, after Bagno Vigno or whatever, I went to Siena. Mm-hmm. Actually, I was in Siena when we spoke. Yeah, and Siena was really nice.
Yeah.
But bit of like a kind of a dusty vibe. And then I went to Rome, and that was awesome. Very cosmopolitan.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of soccer games on, which are a huge deal in Europe.
It's like soccer season.
Yeah. World Cup. Yeah. So that was like a fun rowdy kind of vibe. I went to the Vatican.
That's cool. Yeah. Meh. Yeah.
Meh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel a little jaded in Rome.
How so?
Well, honestly, I couldn't help but feel like, because I'm from Las Vegas, like I've been to Caesar's Palace.
Yeah, and you've seen all the sights.
It all seemed a little familiar.
Yeah.
And I know that it's like the real thing.
Yeah.
But basically, who cares? Yeah. Like I saw that shit at Caesar's Palace.
Yeah, that's sort of
how we have fountains and
you have like a replica of the Giza pyramids in Las Vegas, right?
We've got it all.
Like that. The Sphinx,
that's why I'm so unfazed.
Yeah,
perpetually.
Well, no, I saw the pyramids in like 2008 or 2009.
I bet the pyramids are cool.
They were fine. I have to say, they were a lot smaller than I expected, and the Sphinx was a lot kind of dinkier than I expected.
Were they mysterious?
They were teeming with Russian tourists and like horny Arab tour guides. So it was like kind of a burlesque or picaresque scene or whatever.
Yeah.
But
the tourists really do get in the way.
Yeah.
Though in Rome, very kind of sparse. this time of year because of COVID and everything.
Yeah, and here too, it's nice to finally walk through Soho and not be overrun by like Serbians and Croatians buying football jerseys at the Adidas store, like this kind of thing. But yeah, the one thing that I saw that really blew my mind, that was like a miracle of like human achievement, was the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul. But you can't see it anymore, I don't think, because now it's like a fully functional mosque again. Oh, because Erdogan did that whole like,
right, yeah, so you have to avert your eyes.
Yeah, and you probably can't go inside unless you're like a devout practicing Muslim, which I'm not. Wow. I have no desire to become. No intention.
Word.
Yeah, but yeah, Italy's cool. I would love to do some traveling, but I'm like too lazy to figure it out. And you have to
and you have a baby now.
Yeah, I have a baby now, but you have to, what do you have to do now? You have to take like, you either have to get vaccinated or have two clean COVID tests.
I will say no one's looked at my vax card. Okay. I got asked when I got to Italy if I was vaccinated, and I said yes. And then they gave me a test at the airport, and the doctor, I'm using air quotes because he was wearing camo pants, and he put the swab so far up my nose.
Your vagina. He gave you the Bill Cosby treatment. Here, take these pills.
This Italian doctor gave me the craziest orgasm. And I tested positive for being sexually satisfied. No, he like rammed it up my nose in this very sadistic way where I was like, I almost wanted to be like, hey, fuck you, man.
Yeah.
You think you've got me here, vulnerable orifice for you to... And then I watched him while I was waiting for my results, like administer it to other people, and I watched them like squirm around too. So he clearly has.
So he was like on a power trip.
I think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then you have to get tested 48 hours before you depart.
Oh.
But they change the rules up constantly. So it's like, traveling, you have to be just a little more vigilant, and there's just more bureaucratic stuff to kind of navigate. And I mean, I had to get a work visa to go to Italy, but I think you probably can.
Yeah. My friends Tim and Rena are currently in Rome as we speak, and I'm pretty sure they're there on vacation, not for work. So I'm sure you can.
I think Brits, because of the Delta variant / kind of punishing them for Brexit.
Yeah.
I think they're making Brits quarantine.
That's funny. Yeah. COVID is fun because there's a lot of like, there's a lot of kind of passive aggressive punishments that people and nations can dole out against their enemies.
Exactly.
Like you can totally refuse to see your siblings or friends who aren't vaxxed, passive aggressively. And I think like you can do that on a national level too.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be instrumentalized in that way.
Yeah, it's going to be funny to see what kind of sick, twisted games emerge out of this like never-ending pandemic. One of the rules that did change here that I'm just like still shell-shocked by is like nobody wears masks anymore at all.
Just at all.
Yeah, like you just go, like Little Canal just suddenly took down that weird scaffolding outside and opened their doors. You can walk in, no one's wearing a mask.
What about, I brought my mask on the way over here because I took a car and I didn't put it on because I was kind of like,
nobody cares.
I've been in Europe. Yeah, that's great. I feel like that was starting to happen right before I left, and so that's a relief. That I mean, I hate it.
Yeah, it sucks. I mean, I think come fall there'll be like another round of gay little trickle down lockdowns.
Delta variant.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Hopefully not. But I was very pessimistic about the mask thing and assumed that people would be wearing the masks for like, another generation or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe not.
People want to be free.
Yeah, they do.
They want to live.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, there's constantly like new variants coming out, each more infectious than the previous one. I don't know. Less
fatal, more infectious.
Yeah.
Boring, made up.
Yeah.
What did I miss of stateside?
Well, Bill Cosby
walking free.
Yeah, was freed from jail. Donald Rumsfeld died at 88, surrounded by loved ones. It was a great week for Dudes Rock. So yeah, that happened.
I would have thought Rumsfeld would have lasted longer.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm frankly surprised and disappointed that he didn't make it until 90.
Yeah. Seems like kind of the more civilian deaths you're responsible for, it weirdly prolongs your
And the longer you
your
live,
lifespan. Yeah. The more you warmonger.
Yeah.
A civilian casualty a day keeps the doctor away. Yeah, they don't have cancel culture in Italy.
Yeah. Well, because they're all rapists and racists.
Exactly. So I've been a little checked out. And even the Rumsfeld death kind of came and went for me, but
yeah, it was like a blip. It's another one of those, periodic opportunities for online leftists to make little ironic mincy jokes and like score points.
Get their dunks in.
Yeah, get their little dunks in. Like they're, every time somebody dies, their reaction is like a Bart Simpson gif of him doing an ollie over a coffin draped in an American flag.
Totally.
And it's like after enough of these incidents of like high profile elite vampires croaking, it gets very tired,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I didn't even really know he was alive, so.
Yeah, I actually Googled Dick Cheney today before you were coming over because I was like, is that guy dead? I don't know.
Alive.
He's alive.
That'll be a big day. I think,
for the remnants of the online left to take their shitty little dunks. But yeah, I don't know. I have nothing that interesting or important to say about Donald Rumsfeld.
I mean, seems about as evil as the rest of them,
including everybody else. Yeah,
Biden. So he really gets the brunt of like kind of people's ire because he was the Secretary of Defense,
right? Or one of the chief architects of like Afghanistan and Iraq, for
sure,
and one of like the chief propagandists of like the kind of idea that 9/11 was related somehow to Saddam Hussein, like this kind of stuff that's been like thoroughly debunked.
Weapons of mass destruction, and this and that.
I'd love to watch like an Errol Morris or Adam Curtis documentary on Donald Rumsfeld, like Robert McNamara style, to figure out what he was about,
Yeah. I could definitely use some more insights.
Yeah.
He seems a bit like a fall guy,
I mean, I think he had a lot. He legitimately has a lot of blood on his hands.
No, totally evil, of course. But like the way that George Bush is kind of now, people look back at the Bush administration, for him at least, with this kind of like, whoa. Like,
they're like, he's the Alice Neal of war crimes. He's so charming, painting those veterans with their haunting eyes. But it's true. He's like, doing this like whole, he paints, it's funny because I'm convinced he's like looking at Bernard and Ballard because he has all these images of like legs in a tub that are very nubby, it's like.
I think he's a true outsider artist.
Yeah.
I don't
what's
think
his face? Who's that guy?
Darger.
Yeah, Darger.
The pedophile.
The pedophile,
yeah. Yeah, I think he's operating on instinct, though they do have like a David Hockney-esque kind of charm.
Yeah. It's like a painting of a dog with Vietnam vet eyes. But yeah, I mean, his image has sort of been redeemed. I did notice this time around there were slightly less kind of ironically detached punchlines about Rumsfeld dying. I don't think people cared as much as like RBG or somebody like that, or Scalia even.
John McCain.
Oh yeah, John McCain was the big one. Yeah,
really celebrating that one.
Yeah,
in a distasteful way.
Yeah, my issue with that has always been like when you mock a public figure who is acknowledged to have been bad or evil, you're not really mocking them, you're sort of mocking yourself if you're performing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with making kind of a snide or nasty joke in private in the company of friends, but like, yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm being like too
a sentimental maybe.
Yeah, no, I'm being like too moralistic, but it's
I think really it's people are just kind of, he's a concept. He's a stand-in for like,
he's using an abstraction.
For like American atrocity at large.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's easy to just kind of say whatever.
Yeah,
because it has there's no real humanity there that people are really referring to.
Yeah. So wait, there's a real humanity.
There's no humanity that people.
Yeah, that's true. And I think just like, I mean, it speaks to the fact that a lot of these people basically have no concept of like intergenerational bonding, and therefore no concept of death or mortality, because they hate their parents and they will never have children. And it's like that sort of thing. They're completely kind of untethered from the idea of like humanity as like a generational exchange.
Right.
So I think that's what, I'm probably, again, being overly moralistic and like reading too much into it, but it always bugs me because, again, it's like you're humiliating yourself, and not like this rich dead guy who died again among his loved ones and had a great life in spite of architecting two of the...
I bet he didn't have a great life karmically. You know?
Yeah, maybe not. But I mean, he
must have felt, maybe not. I don't know. He probably is a lizard, so he didn't feel like a deep void or something,
a deep level of guilt,
a sense of
all those brown civilians
a
slaughtered.
Weird sense of unease that kind of haunted him for the rest of his life or something. Maybe he didn't have that.
Well, and the other thing I noticed was that the July 4th kind of came and went without much fanfare.
I noted it while I was abroad.
Yeah, there was no... I mean, there was like fireworks, but it was definitely like less patriotic than years prior.
There were fireworks.
Yeah.
Really, you think?
There were like shitty little fireworks around New York City, which is like how it always is, but...
Yeah. That's another one where people love to be like, actually, fuck July 4th.
Yeah.
They'll do a like land acknowledgement instead. Yeah. But America rules. There's,
America what?
Rules.
Yeah, I like feeling patriotic. I like the
4th of July.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's a fun day for me usually.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy to be in America.
Yeah.
And not Belarus.
So
just in that way, I'm really identify as a patriot.
Yeah, me too. I used to be somewhat sore growing up at the fact that we moved to America because my father's friends and their kids moved to the UK. Mm-hmm. And I remember being jealous because I wanted that kind of British accent, but now I feel less bad about it because it seems like the UK sucks more than ever.
It's on par with America.
But I'd rather be in New York than in London.
For sure. I'd rather be in New York than anywhere.
Yeah, totally.
No offense. But here's something I was wondering about.
Uh-huh.
Do you think if you talked to your baby in a British accent exclusively, he might develop one?
Totally, yeah.
Right? Because that's all it is.
Yeah, because he would develop probably the accent of the person that he spent the most time with initially. And it would be some weird mixed hybrid, like Nathan J. Robinson-ass accent. But because it would be like...
Well, his is totally fake.
Well, it's fake, yeah. But it'd be
more like kind of like Mark Ronson.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I actually don't know what his accent sounds like, but...
He has a subtle British
cool.
accent.
It's hot.
Hot. But... You should try that out because I think it would be really cute.
I should speak to the baby in a British accent.
I think it would be cute if he had a British accent.
Okay. I'm just going to speak to him in my Melania voice.
So he has a Slovenian accent? Yeah.
Yeah, you can. Well, I was watching like Multiki with him. It was really cute. He's really into. I was showing him Carlson. Remember?
Который живет на крыше.
Yeah. And also Ежик в тумане, a hedgehog in the fog, and he was like really into it. I don't think he understands it at all, but he just like likes images on the screen. I don't think he has any concept of like
a genius. Or it's too soon. That's too soon to tell.
It's too soon to tell. Yeah, but he's definitely not autistic.
He recognized me today, made full eye contact, and was like smiling and laughing. So
yeah, so take that, all the haters who said that he would have fetal alcohol syndrome or autism.
Take that. He looked me right in the eyes.
Would an autist do that?
I don't think so.
But yeah, I think like whatever you do, babies are sponges, which is like why you have to like tread carefully. But yeah, I'm into your experiment. I would try speaking to him in a weird retarded accent. But I don't know how to do a British accent.
Right.
It's like really bad.
Yeah. So
he would just sound deaf.
What? Like a pickpocket? Yeah. He's Cockney. What's all this then? All right. I was thinking about how much I'd like to have a British baby, and I was like, maybe I don't have to move to the UK.
Yeah,
maybe I could just raise it in like an Anglophilic environment.
Yeah, you can just like raise it in kind of
time for your full English breakfast.
Yeah,
little baby
tea and crumpets. You could just watch it and like you could just raise it in like a weird kind of escape room or deprivation chamber where the only thing that's on TV is Downton Abbey, you know, or like Harry Potter.
Yeah,
he just comes out a libtard,
but with a great RP.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I'm a big fan of British culture, actually, in spite of my hatred for London, the city.
Well, I love Britpop.
Me too.
And
I love Brit humor.
Totally, of course. I'm rooting for England in the World Cup.
Who's left?
Italy just won.
Okay.
And England maybe already did play Denmark and maybe won. Okay. I really don't know. They maybe lost already. It's pretty boring.
The World
Cup. No
Cup.
offense. Soccer.
I don't mind it because it's like basketball and the guys are pretty hot. They just run from one side of the court to the next, and it's kind of like fast paced, which I like.
It's not though. It's not like basketball because they don't make a ton of points.
That's true.
And they're not always doing like super dope stuff. Like
that's
the way
true,
basketball players are, they're really, like 1-0 is like a soccer game.
Strategizing. But I think
fun.
They're the hottest athletes of all sports athletes.
They are. Well, you like a short king.
Yeah.
So for sure, I'm definitely gonna have to go with hockey players.
Oh yeah, true.
Because of the brain damage.
Yeah, and the girthiness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then basketball players, and then soccer players. Yeah. And tennis players, but that's a whole.
But they're up there as far as team sports.
Yeah.
Like for me, like football and baseball guys are at the bottom.
For sure. With their big fat butts.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're kind of...
They're pogs.
Yeah, they're like obese. And men are always like, no, you don't understand. There's like pure muscle under there. And it's like a man whose like muffin top is sagging over his belt.
Baseball, the least hot.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
And the least kind of interesting sport for me. Men love it because it's like slow and methodical and it involves a lot of strategy.
Mm-hmm.
They love to like take their sons to baseball games and stuff like that.
It's huge for father-son bonding.
Yeah, but it's not really for me. Anyway.
Well, why was I talking about soccer again?
I know.
Anglophilia. Yeah, no, I respect the Brits for sure.
Yeah, they're cool.
And not just because the majority of the writers' room on Succession is British.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that too. But they basically invented white supremacy.
Go England. What?
The Brits. Because they spread their empire all over the world. They're like a major colonial power.
Yeah.
Which is cool, I guess. Anyway,
I guess that's true.
Yeah,
I guess they invented it, and then America perfected it.
Yeah, totally. Anyway, Bill Cosby?
On to lighter fare. Cosby's out of jail.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I am a prison abolitionist. I'm just kidding.
Abolitionista.
I don't believe in the penal system, so I don't think anyone should be in jail. I think Bill Cosby was definitely super duper guilty, right? Like,
well, I don't know. I think he did bad things. I mean, I think anybody who has Quaaludes on deck,
yeah,
that's suspect
for sure.
It's weird to kind of eagerly await for opportunities to drug women.
Yeah.
However,
and to drug women,
yeah,
is weird.
Yeah.
However, criminal.
It's yes. However, though, I think that this verdict or whatever resolution to the verdict is probably good in the long run, because the whole Cosby case to me was a kind of a classic. It was like exemplary of the overreach of the Me Too era. This case did begin in 2015, so 2 years before
of the official Me Too era. Yeah.
But he was convicted, I think, in 2018. So it was like right at the kind of height.
Yeah.
When was Weinstein convicted? Not after that, right?
Yeah, I think. Or around then. But it's also 2016, the story broke. And then I think he... Maybe so 2019? I feel like it was kind of recently because we maybe talked about his weird dick.
Yeah, and Donna Rotono, his female lawyer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, whatever you personally think about the guy, his guilt, his moral character, what happened with this case is really disturbing, like the original conviction.
Yeah, so what did happen?
So, in my mind, so I read kind of Michael Tracy's treatment of it. I read the Vox articles. Yeah.
Talking
and I read the kind of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court decision.
I read an IndieWire article that was very short.
But initially, I mean, there was a lot of like liberals on Twitter basically claiming that he got off on kind of like a snafu or a technicality.
Right.
And he actually got off because there was like a major flaw in the 2015 prosecution, Freudian slip, because the original DA had offered him, in a handshake deal, almost offered him immunity from criminal prosecution in exchange for him agreeing to testify against himself in a civil trial, because he had deemed that it was very unlikely that they would get a criminal conviction, was trying to get the victim, Andrea Constant, some level of justice. She ended up settling to the tune of $3.38 million. So she got a lot of money out of him in 2000.
He testified against himself
in a civil proceeding
in exchange for immunity in a criminal proceeding?
Yes, according to the Fifth Amendment.
How is that possible?
Because he basically agreed to testify and made certain self-incriminating remarks after the fact. And the original district attorney had basically he made a determination that based on certain aspects of the case that they would be very, very unlikely to secure a criminal conviction.
But then they did.
Well,
but then they overturned it.
Well, because the original DA moved on to another position. He was replaced by, I think, his assistant, and she decided to proceed with a criminal case in 2015. So a full 10 years after the civil case was settled.
Oh.
Yeah. And there's actually an email, an exchange from the original DA to the new DA saying, like, you probably shouldn't go down this route.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
So basically, there is a violation of his due process of his civil liberties, whether or not, you and I personally
because he had testified in the civil suit.
Because he had a deal with the original prosecutor basically saying that he was immune from criminal prosecution.
Wow.
And for some reason, she reopened the case and decided to pursue criminal proceedings. I don't know why. To me, this, again, feels like a kind of Me Too era case, right?
Yeah.
I think
bit of a blunder.
I think, because Me Too popped off, they probably really wanted to secure a conviction, and they did.
Right.
but now he's out.
Okay. Do you think he knows what's going on at all?
Yeah, totally. He flipped the bird to the helicopters when he was being led back into his home.
No way.
Yeah, and now he's defending Felicia Rashad, his former co-star on the Cosby Show. She played his wife. She's a kind of liberal arts humanities dean at Howard University now, and she tweeted in support of him when he initially got off and was slapped with a reprimand by Howard because she showed kind of insufficient sensitivity to the victims.
Okay.
But, Tracy's absolutely right that this procedure, this appeal did not seek to exonerate Bill Cosby.
Right. It was about miscarriage of justice.
Yeah, it was about kind of a kind of defense of a following of like constitutional law, which admittedly I'm too stupid to get to the bottom of and don't quite understand. But it seemed like there was...
The Fifth Amendment is you can't... Which one's the Fifth Amendment? You have the right to remain
You have the right to remain silent, to not incriminate yourself.
You can't be tried for the same crime twice. Is that?
Well, that I don't know. But basically, I think he gave like a bunch of depositions, I think 4, or during the civil trial, incriminated himself a number of times and declined to invoke the Fifth Amendment.
Okay.
So, yeah. But
and
there's...
the woman who played his wife can't testify against him. That's
yeah, because yeah.
So that checks out. That's based on my legal understanding.
Yeah.
She has to voice her support because she was his TV wife.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I was surprised. I'm surprised that she voiced support for him. But yeah, I mean, I think that, I agree with Tracy here that the outcome is a reassuring sign that the judicial system is working the way it should be, despite outside cultural and political pressures. Right.
And I mean, I guess ostensibly you could say that his victim already got justice in the form of the settlement in the civil suit.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, she got a very hefty sum. And the case itself is really interesting. I was reading the background in the state Supreme Court ruling, and it's really interesting because they met in the fall of 2002. She was the director of like basketball operations at Temple University, and he was heavily involved in Temple University. So he was probably like a donor or something like that. He invited her to his home. She had dinner and drank wine alone, and then he put his hand on her thigh. This is their first meeting, and she rejected his advance, but said she wasn't bothered by it, and left shortly thereafter. Then he befriended her mother and her sister. He invited them to a comedy performance. She went to his house a second time, also in 2002, where she again ate and drank alone. He tried to like unbutton her pants, and she again declined his advance and went home. But according to her, she assumed that she had definitively like gotten her point across that she didn't want to have sex with him.
Right. But that was before she was high on Quaaludes.
Yes. Well, in 2003, then she went to Foxwoods Casino and had dinner with him and a Foxwoods employee who escorted her to her hotel room. Then Bill Cosby invited her to his hotel room. She went, he dozed off, but she interpreted that as another sexual overture, but nothing happened.
Dozing off?
The invitation.
Right.
And in all 3 of those meetings, as well as the kind of last definitive one that was in question here, they talked about her stress over her career and her future because she wanted to go into sports broadcasting. There's like all these weird, details. And then, so in January 2004, that night, she went to his house. And this time he had set out kind of water and wine, and he had offered her 3 pills, which she took voluntarily.
What?
Yeah, she downed the pills voluntarily, according to this rule. So according to this decision. So I'm assuming that she is on record saying that she took them voluntarily, and he corroborates this. And
what?
Yeah, it's really weird. I mean, look,
I'm nobody one to talk. I'll definitely take any old pill, basically.
Like if somebody's.
I guess I get it, right? If you're like trying to loosen up or something, but. Wow, that's crazy.
It's crazy. And then basically, and then she woke up. He had like
He got her hair wet. He likes to didn't he like to?
No, not this time around, but he
that was a thing for him, was the
it
wet hair.
was.
That's so weird.
I mean, he's obviously like a weird sex freak,
yeah.
But he basically, that's when he fondled her breasts and like penetrated her vaginally and this sort of thing. And she woke up and had a muffin and tea with him the next morning and then continued to call him. I don't understand.
Well, because of the basketball stuff.
Well, right. And then she got her mother involved. Then she started recording his phone calls. And a year later, in 2005, she finally went to the police. But all of these details and other ones led this DA again to decide that it was very unlikely that they would get him convicted criminally on those charges. Okay.
But then there were tons and tons of other victims that were
59 other victims.
Gloria
Allred. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing.
The big magazine with the
when Gloria Allred, totally exemplary feminist on a personal level, but when she's representing victims run for the hills because the milk ain't clean, that woman's an ambulance chaser. She gets off on profiteering off of victims.
Well, that's just lawyers.
Yeah, but she's the worst one of them because she's like, she
gets the job done.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, this is all like so kind of shocking. I thought there would be like a cut and dry story with Cosby, that he legitimately like aggressively forced himself on this woman.
Well, what about all the other ones?
I'm going to really go down this rabbit hole because I'm interested in understanding what happened. But just going on this case alone, it's, she continued to have a personal and professional relationship with him.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, he's absolutely wrong. He did something morally reprehensible. Whether it's criminal is not, up to me to determine. But
yeah,
as always, like all of these cases are so much more complicated than they seem in the media.
Of course. He does. Yeah. I mean, right. Criminal guilt is a different thing, but he's definitely guilty of
drugging women. Yeah, totally.
And raping them, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was this other kind of discourse happening about how a lot of kind of left liberal commentators were calling this kind of like an abortion of justice and saying that he should spend the rest of his life in prison, and people were pointing out that this is hypocritical because typically these are people who are very like defund the police, abolish the carceral state, this sort of thing.
Right.
That doesn't strike me as so weird at the end of the day, because I think
because abolishing the carceral state is incoherent.
Yeah, and also like people are ultimately swayed by their own arbitrary intuitions and their own arbitrary morality, and you might think somebody is totally evil and deserves to spend the rest of their life in prison, whereas some other people don't, which is why the law exists, to give everybody the same due process and civil liberties, right?
God bless America.
Yeah. But it's, I mean, yeah, why is this important? Because it protects everyone, not just Bill Cosby. Yeah. And even if nominally and theoretically, it's a very important kind of legal precedent, right? That it's good that it's being kind of definitely upheld.
Well, I mean, isn't the whole reason he was offered immunity was because he could pay in this civil suit?
Yes.
Which isn't really justice. If you can buy your way out of a conviction.
Yeah, but he's
technically, I guess, there was some abortion of justice, but it still seems like, I don't know, like the first thing wasn't just. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not understanding it.
Well, no, I mean, I think like, again, given the options between a kind of unlikely criminal prosecution and a likely civil outcome, she chose the latter, and her lawyers chose the latter because she would receive some money. So that's like justice in one respect. Mm-hmm. Me personally,
restorative justice.
Yeah, I would rather take the money than see the guy rot in prison.
Definitely. 100%.
And there is, the issue that now he's 84 years old. He's legally blind. He's probably not a threat to anybody at this point. So he can like live out the rest of his years like in kind of de facto house arrest, roaming his backyard or whatever.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. There's no reason for him to be in jail in terms of like being a repeat offender or something.
Yeah, but I mean, again, like, I don't know what this means for like, it feels like the Me Too era is definitely over.
Yeah.
In terms of like, again, the
what
initial
a wild
furor.
ride it's been.
Yeah, but I think that it's going to continue spiraling out into different, pastures. And the kind of logic of Me Too is going to be used against other groups in a kind of non-sexual assault capacity.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
well, for me, it kind of, the woman who Me Too'd, what was her name? I don't even remember her name. Wasn't there a woman who said Biden had sexually assaulted her?
Oh, Tara Reid.
Tara Reid.
Yeah.
How could I forget? Hollywood actress Tara Reid was raped by Joe Biden, and that no one really cared.
Yeah.
And that was when I was like, oh yeah, I see. I mean, it was always clearly dubious from the get-go.
Yeah.
Which we clocked right away.
Yeah, I think she was a total like Janice Soprano ambulance chaser, like slip and fall scheme person. But yeah, but it was it was obvious from the start, like, decades before Me Too, the Monica Lewinsky thing, where suddenly all these feminists did an about face and started smearing Monica Lewinsky and insulting her and defending Bill Clinton because he was their candidate. He was their guy.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I hope, I don't know if it's a good or bad thing now that everybody is aware of the fact that Me Too is totally hypocritical and full of shit.
Yeah, I could see how it could just perpetuate itself in increasingly meaningless ways.
Yeah, because I think it emboldens people who are like craven opportunists to be like, well, we know it's hypocritical and
it doesn't
full
matter.
of shit. Doesn't matter. I'm gonna get mine.
This is my chance.
So I don't even know that it's good that it's ceased to be seen as like a positive social justice movement and is now clearly clocked for what it is, which is like an opportunistic free-for-all.
Power grab.
Yeah.
Word.
Anyway.
Joe Rogan. Oh yeah.
Another dudes rock kind of dude.
Yeah. A lot of fellas getting shine on this episode. The New York Times published a massive hit piece kind of on Rogan that was called Joe Rogan is Too Big to Be Canceled.
Yeah. And I texted you like too big ?
He's just too big, I guess, to get canceled. He's so big.
He's so hot. And because he probably has a normal sized penis, it seems larger in proportion to the rest of his body because he's so small. It's
probably big-ish.
Yeah. I'm going to go with, yeah.
And plus lots of, I noticed in this piece, describing his musculature as well. Like,
yeah, they were really kind of overselling the case. You know?
Like his pectoral muscles bulging out of his tight t-shirt as he hosts his problematic podcast. When he was a young comic, he took to wearing billowy clothes to hide his incredible physique.
Yeah, what was that all about? It's like, what? What does this have to do with anything?
The whole thing was very, very long and meandering.
It was really long and weird. It's funny because actually, when I was reading the Vox explainer of the Bill Cosby thing, the guy who was writing it was saying how kind of like convoluted and confusing it was, which I thought it was a perfectly understandable document, and I'm a retard and don't know anything about law, and I was like, there's some like gambit here because they're trying to convince people that there was some kind of miscarriage of justice. And this is how this New York Times article on Joe Rogan was too, where they were like, they literally didn't have any evidence, no smoking gun to prove that he was like an angry extremist, so they had to like manufacture all this smoke and mirrors.
The Fear Factor smearing was my favorite part.
What did they say? I think I like glossed over that part.
it was like, he used to be the host of a show where people ate bugs. I'll find it. I have my screenshots are
now everybody in society has to eat bugs. Yeah, I like missed the fear factor part, but
okay, Joe Rogan's position was clear. The show was harmless. No one was being forced to tune in. And if it was also terrible, why were so many people entertained? Everyone keeps harping on this rat thing, he said, defending himself on Bill Maher's Politically Incorrect in 2001 as the host and his other guests laced into Fear Factor, the Rogan-hosted reality hit that had competitors munching on buffalo testicles and lying in pits of vermin on primetime television. So you lie and you're covered with rats. They don't do anything to you. Bill Maher likened the program to a snuff film. Mr. Rogan assured him that the participants enjoyed themselves more or less and that the audience most certainly did. If it's exciting and if it's entertaining, people will watch, he said. If it's not, it'll go away. Such is the through line in much of Mr. Rogan's arc. An instinct for keeping people on the hook, just curious enough to stick around for the next contestant challenge, the next joke, the last 20 minutes of a 3-hour conversation with Quentin Tarantino. The analogy between the snuff programming of Fear Factor, which I loved as a kid.
And also he's the host, not the showrunner.
He didn't make up, he didn't devise the...
Yeah.
It was all he said was, fear is not a factor for you. Yeah.
And it's clear they have to like talk about how brawny and muscular he is because he's so small that he's like literally non-threatening, you know?
He is
he could totally knock somebody out and kill them, but just like, you know...
Yeah.
He's like a man of small stature. There's a lot of also...
Joe Rogan truly has done nothing wrong.
He's literally, it's so insane.
He's a great example of you can't get canceled if your heart is pure.
Yes, exactly.
And your dick is big.
Yes. Did you listen to the Tarantino interview?
I haven't.
I just listened to it the other day, and it's like the supposedly subversive and extremist Joe Rogan being like, oh my God, Quentin, that's so awesome. That's so cool that you read that book in 1998. Like he's so like enthusiastic over like the most basic and banal things that's what makes him like appealing. This is the name of the article. Joe Rogan is too big to cancel. He's now one of the most consumed media products on the planet. His Spotify deal, estimated at 100 million, speaks to the allure of making audiences feel like they're in on something subversive. And it's like, there's nothing subversive about Joe Rogan. He's like a total normie and everyman.
Yeah.
His appeal is that he makes people feel like we're all on the same plane of reality.
Yeah. And he's good natured.
Yeah.
He's actually doesn't have malice. So even if you don't agree with some of his like takes on, let's say, trans athletes or something.
Yeah.
He isn't operating from a place. He doesn't have an agenda, and people respond well to that.
He literally, the funniest part of this article was seeing them try to convince us that he A, has an agenda, and B, is a deeply angry and bitter person, right. Which is like not true. You're right. He doesn't have an agenda, and he's intellectually curious, which is always appealing.
Yeah.
He's like, you know, again, like a normie and everyman, a midwit, which I don't say derisively because I think of myself as a midwit, like
for sure,
a dumb but like enthusiastic person who's fundamentally intellectually curious. That's like, you know, he's appealing literally for that reason.
Yeah.
And it's like crazy that the New York Times, having lost kind of the cash cow of Trump, is trying to manufacture new enemies like Rogan, Tucker.
Big mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, Rogan is one of the most beloved men in America.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, it's crazy because it's like, it also goes to show like the total like non-negotiable, there's no point where the kind of opinions of like everyday people and the opinions of the elite meet. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like if you polled most everyday like ordinary people, they would probably think Joe Rogan was like harmless and fun.
Yeah, or like, oh, what? He has a podcast?
Yeah.
They wouldn't really think about it. They pulled out, yeah, they did they drudged up like the anti-vax thing of him being skeptical about young people getting vaccinated.
I mean, again, there shouldn't be any skepticism.
Pretty reasonable, yeah.
Like it's absolutely a fluke and a folly to vaccinate young people, children, infants. It's ridiculous. There's no evidence to suggest that they are more harmed by COVID than they are harmed by vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's absolutely right. And it sucked because he ended up basically walking back those remarks, or not quite walking them back, but kind of laughing at himself in the way that we do also, and just kind of disavowing responsibility and being like, oh, I'm just a comic. I wouldn't even take my own medical advice.
Yeah. Well, yeah, obviously I can't help but relate to Joe.
Yeah, but he should have like stuck to his guns and been like, fuck this. It's ridiculous and perverted to vaccinate children. I was thinking about this today because I was like, well...
I don't think he was talking about children, though.
Oh, okay. I thought he was talking about young people.
I think all he said was like, if you're young, a young adult who's healthy, you shouldn't be like clamoring to get yourself vaccinated.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Well, there's also all this evidence that young men are having myocarditis. They're having like heart inflammation from these vaccines.
No. For real?
Yeah.
God damn it.
I mean, it's all of this is speculative. It's hard to know what to believe, but
I've been spotting and stuff. I've been having weird menstrual side effects on the record, we'll say.
Maybe it's from all the pasta. But
no, but that's also.
But there's all this stuff like floating around, and I was thinking about how all the debates that admittedly I haven't been super abreast of because I'm like consumed with raising this baby, but like the question of should we teach critical race theory in classrooms, the question of whether children should be allowed to transition without parental consent, the question of whether children should receive what are admittedly experimental vaccines, they all point to the same thing, which is like a massive lack of investment in the future, borrowing against the future by people who feel that they have no future because they are indifferent to the well-being of future generations.
Right.
And like, I think Joe Rogan understands this actually intimately as like a father of three and a husband and a family man.
Well, here's, Mr. Rogan has said he did not vote for Donald Trump. Like, why don't you just say he didn't vote for Donald Trump?
What?
Mr. Rogan has said he did not vote for Donald Trump in either of his campaigns.
Yeah.
Like, even that. Like, while he says he didn't vote for Donald Trump.
Right, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Praising Bernie Sanders and promoting left-wing policy like universal basic income, he has proved uniquely skilled in the kind of cultural combat that lifted the former president, projecting shared disdain for elite groupthink and liberal hypersensitivity. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily agree that was the cultural combat that lifted the former president. I think he was lifted by institutions like the failing New York Times, gave him tons and tons of press.
Yeah.
You can never be woke enough. That's the problem, Mr. Rogan complained in May, riffing on the perils of cancel culture and suggesting that, quote, it'll eventually get to straight white men are not allowed to talk. Yet there is also a hitch in this construction, the bracing counterexample that is Joe Rogan, white man talking. He has long said what pleased him, offended polite society, and warned of the reputational risks in pursuing such a life. For his sins, he has been burdened with a staggering fortune and a global reach.
Yeah, it's so insane. It's like he doesn't say what pleases him. He says what in his mind should be said to keep people informed. I genuinely don't think that he's a person with like you said, any sort of kind of agenda or any preconceived notions.
Yeah.
They talk about how like in interviews, fans repeatedly cite Mr. Rogan's willingness to air any perspective, however provocative, especially those shunned or overlooked by traditional news organizations. I mean, his only crime is being extra institutional, right? Because he's like forking in so much money as such a huge audience. That's what they're so mad about.
Yeah. That's literally what they're mad about. Is his fortune and his global reach.
And like, how did he get there in total good faith by talking about things that are interesting to people that are kind of like excluded from the mainstream media or manipulated?
It drives them crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is, I think, why Tucker is appealing. I think it's why Alex Jones is appealing, in spite of the fact that he's kind of a dramatist. I think this is
with Alex Jones at least, and Tucker also, but Alex Jones and Rogan have in common that they are both entertainers.
Yeah.
And that's why he gets to say like, haha, I don't take my medical advice.
Yeah.
Because entertainment at the end of the day is like entertainment.
Yeah. But like, I mean, you probably...
And you can't just say someone has more responsibility than they do because they have a platform.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a good question that they sort of like broach and or try to tackle in this article. Like, what responsibility does Joe Rogan have to people? I mean, I find him to be like a thoroughly responsible guy. I think that he doesn't compel people to have certain opinions one way or another, you know.
He's accrued his audience kind of on his own terms, and in his own way.
Yeah.
So to his audience, he's responsible only in as far as he like is entertaining. He's the only thing Joe Rogan is responsible for is entertaining people, which he is doing obviously a great job.
Yeah, he's doing a great job in spite of being actually a really bad The funniest thing is that the funniest part of this article, and also of like the Joe Rogan mythos, is that he styles himself as a comic, as a stand-up, and he's actually literally not funny. And it's shocking that it's necessary for him to think of himself that way, because I actually don't think that, you know, it's not like
well, I think
no, go ahead.
I think comedy gives him kind of like ideological infrastructure vis-a-vis like speech, you know.
Well, and there's definitely a comedy to podcaster pipeline that many have benefited from. And it's also a lot like, but you know, at the end of the day, it's like Susan Sontag.
He's truly a podcaster. He's really not.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
not a comic.
But it's like Susan Sontag, who always was sore over the fact that she was not recognized as a fiction writer because people read her cultural criticism, and that was what she was known for. You know, nobody took her seriously as a fiction writer.
Right.
And I think Joe Rogan does want to be taken seriously as like a comedian and as a stand-up.
Does he still do stand-up?
He did, I think, before
He's got
COVID.
such a full roster.
Yeah. I'm gonna listen to. He had
podcasts all the time.
I know. It's frankly impressive.
I mean, we can barely manage. That's why we don't have that $100 million Spotify deal.
Yeah. But yeah, this is from the article. Even today, many comedians are reluctant to speak critically of Mr. Rogan in public, conscious of his present platform and zealous fans, and well-versed in his capacity to unsettle presumed adversaries even before he had such power. And it's so funny. It's like the reason other comics don't insult his comedy isn't because he's all powerful and has the power to ruin them. It's because he's such a nice guy and they're afraid of hurting his feelings. It's literally that. Nobody's afraid of Joe Rogan.
Funny to get on a high horse about Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's true that he's kind of like a kingmaker and he's given so many people a platform, but I think like he's not like Bill Cosby coercing you to come to his hotel room and promising to establish like a trust fund for your education. I think he gives these platforms with no expectation of receiving something in return.
Yeah.
It's because he's a genuinely kind of like open-minded and enthusiastic guy. It's all that DMT he's smoking or whatever.
Totally. It's all that time in the ISO tank.
Yeah. But he's a big fan of drugs in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is cool, I guess. But I think he's talked about how it's made him more kind of gentle and open-minded.
There's a part, right. This article was so fucking long.
It really was, yeah.
They talk about how he didn't smoke weed when he was like doing Fear Factor, and then he said, then he determined marijuana was a fine choice after all. I've never seen pot help somebody like it helped him, Mr. Herrera, the comic said. He would just be like, oh God, I hope he has his edibles today. That would mellow him out. And that product increasingly positioned the host as a lifestyle sage, an ideal towards which listeners might reach physically and intellectually if they could only read the right books and swing the right kettlebells, a vision of a certain kind of manhood. Aspire to be the person you pretend to be, Mr. Rogan counseled in one episode when you're trying to get laid.
That's great advice.
That's fantastic
advice. It's fantastic advice.
And also tongue-in-cheek. There's so much of this of like where they are quoting something he said and then in a lengthy parenthetical being like, they claim that this was a joke.
This is my favorite one.
Totally humorless, bitter, jealous haters.
Yeah, no, here's a good one. He took such care of his body that he rarely drank heavily or smoked marijuana, announcing himself as an expert in other vices, claiming that he possessed the largest private collection of pornography in the world. When one skeptic questioned how this could be proved, the man recalled, Mr. Rogan delivered a 2-word affirmation that sounded convincing enough. Trust me. A Rogan spokesman said, if there was ever a comment like this made, it was in the context of a joke. Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, duh.
But it's funny because this like also gets to the heart of the fact that like, again, like left liberal commentators have this idea in their minds. I don't know if they're earnest or totally cynical. I think I err on the side of the latter, that like only they alone can do irony. Mm-hmm. And the rest of us are being totally earnest and genuine at all times, never hyperbolic. And also we're all white supremacists. Like that's literally the outlook.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think comedy is also for Joe an important framework.
Yeah.
Because it gives him like the freedom to as a genre of speaking.
Yeah.
Gives him kind of it isn't I don't know, a good identity just to sort of associate with, I guess.
Yeah, I can see why he would continue. I mean, my hunch, my intuition is that he genuinely kind of does see himself as like not only a comic, but as a comic sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think it is probably like a wise, astute position to have, because he could always fall back on the fact that he is a comic and an entertainer.
Right. And he doesn't even have to fall back on it because he just is.
Yeah. But also, what does it say about our culture, our society, that a mere comic, an entertainer, is more informed about COVID than the so-called experts?
Yeah. Who's not even right wing. They can't even, that's the article does so much work to kind of paint him as like an extremist.
Yeah, it is like literally like doing the work, and they have no like grounds for it, and
they should have held off.
Yeah, they should have
actual smoking gun or something.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is the same thing with Alex Jones. Like, there's no evidence to suggest that the guy is like consistently, coherently right wing. He's not a right winger. He's has certain conservative leanings, but he's fundamentally also like a crackpot, eccentric artist entertainer.
Yeah, but he really capitalized on InfoWars as like a news organization rather than, you know.
Yeah. And
he had kind of humble Austin shock jock roots.
Yeah.
And I think once you make yourself vulnerable to being taken seriously when you turn your back on your shock jock past.
Yeah.
And I never will.
And this too also
the whole article is basically just an extended, the longest thing I've ever read of like that could be really summed up in like just calling Joe Rogan a shock jock. Yeah,
but it's funny because they're both like horny and enthusiastic, but also like moralizing and like po-faced and tisk-tisking. The Bernie stuff was really funny. In fact, in a race focused largely on perceived electability against Mr. Trump, granting the interview was seen internally as a fairly easy call, a way to reach independents or even conservative-leaning voters who might rarely hear from Sanders otherwise. And it's like, this is why progressives were so mad when Bernie went on Rogan and got the so-called endorsement, which wasn't really an endorsement, because it gave him a wide-ranging popular platform.
Yeah.
And it made him more electable.
And libs love to lose.
But my favorite part was when they emailed
this article.
I don't know.
I'm gonna look this MFer up. While you talk.
My favorite part was when they contacted Tim Dillon for an interview.
Oh yeah, what did Tim Dillon say?
He like cursed them out and posted the exchange on Twitter. I remember that.
I don't remember that. Nigel Buchanan. Ugh.
Sounds like a fag.
Sounds like an old money name if I ever heard one. I don't know. There's an actor named Nigel Buchanan.
Oh, there is.
I don't think penned that article.
Yeah, I highly doubt it.
Wow, is this the only thing he's written? Oh no, sorry, that's the guy who did the illustration.
Oh,
okay. Matt Flegenheimer.
Oh, the illustration was good. I enjoyed the illustration.
Yeah,
it was very
good on you.
Yeah.
We take it back. You're not a faggot. You did in this.
You're great.
Cool drawing. Matt Flegenheimer, on the other hand, all right. He's written some like Cuomo stuff. Ugh. Hater.
Yeah, no, there's so many. Yeah.
It's like, I mean, all the bad faith. It's like, it reminds me of when that Jezebel piece was published about us. That was like, they said the only acceptable hobby is smoking cigarettes. And I was like, that's funny.
Yeah.
I was like, that was a good one. We must have been on that day.
Yeah. I forgot about that. No, but it's shocking. I guess it's disappointing to me how low the bar has fallen, and how articles like this can literally be published in like good faith and nobody bats an eyelash.
Yeah.
Well, Rogan's so big now that he doesn't need.
So big.
Yeah, he's so muscular and brawny. He doesn't need the blessing of the failing New York Times, so he probably doesn't even have to.
Infuriates.
Yeah,
them.
yeah. It must suck to be the failing New York Times, and like a guy like Joe Rogan has like the liberty to like not notice you at all, and doesn't have to give a shit about your little shitty smear job.
Being extra institutional really is his greatest crime.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, because
think
he's found a way to bypass the kind of cathedral or whatever, and he doesn't have to pander to their sensibilities. I mean, this was also Trump's greatest crime. It actually wasn't his greatest political crime, but the mainstream media made such a big stink about it that it gave everybody an easy out to neglect his political kind of mediocrity and inefficacy, which is a shame.
Yeah. But in a way, this article is kind of reassuring, because it does feel kind of like a desperate grasping last kind of, you know.
But like, how long can this go on? I mean, there was recently that Tucker story that the NSA was spying on his show, and he claims that a whistleblower contacted him and said that the NSA was spying, that they had certain details that were that would only be known to him and other email recipients.
Okay.
And you know, then they issued some wishy-washy like non-incriminating statement or whatever, but it's true that, I mean, even Tucker, who's I guess an institutional guy because he's on Fox, but he's sort of a hybrid guy because he brings all the ratings to Fox and they need him more than he needs them,
right?
But if you are like truly, if you are extra institutional or kind of on the precipice of institutional, that's the biggest kind of cause for contempt from mainstream elites. And I don't know how I mean, like, that's a good thing for those people. Like, it's a good thing for everybody making bank off of Substacks, but I always question whether it's a good thing for like culture at large, because there are certain things that institutions can accomplish that individuals can't.
Of course, yeah. I mean, the Fear Factor stuff, honestly. That show was on in like 2001.
Yeah. Well, that's
and
how
he
it
was
is
the
now.
host.
Yeah, but
being like, yeah, well, people ate bugs on that show, and
I know. I mean, soon
now
they're going to be canceling people
podcast
for rapes they committed in character in movies and TV shows.
Right. He probably got a nice paycheck for Fear Factor.
For Fear Factor? Who knows? That was like the early days of reality TV, right?
Yeah. I mean, I watched it. I used to have a crush on this boy in my like 4th grade class. Okay. And we would call each other on the phone every night and we would watch Fear Factor together.
That's really cute.
So Joe Rogan's been influential.
A backdrop to your life.
Yeah. And always good natured. Yeah. No one could, you know, if I was going to lie in a pit of vermin or go on the trapeze or whatever people did on that show, I would want no one by my side more than Rogan to tell me that fear is not a factor for me. I mean, there's also so many humiliating game shows that are on now where people do all sorts of debased,
like even more.
things.
Well, there was that Netflix dating show where people wear elaborate prosthetics.
God.
And it's like, you know, these people are wearing masks. It's like they're not wearing masks. That's literally all there is to them.
They're willing to put on facial prosthetics to go on a reality dating show.
Yeah, they're weird, perverted furries. That's what they want. They would prefer not to see the face of their blind date ever.
I've seen enough.
Yeah. There's a lot more depredation and depravity on TV than there was in the Fear Factor days.
For sure.
Anyway, do you want to talk about bisexuals, or shall we call it?
We can touch on it.
Yeah.
Another piece from the failing New York Times.
Sorry, you're like jet lagged and I'm wasted.
Are you wasted?
I'm drunk. I have such low tolerance now because I never drink. Yeah.
Yeah. It tasted like a natty wine though.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So it probably has kind of a high alcohol content.
I don't know. What is there to say about biphobia? I guess like really nothing.
Kind of nothing. Yeah. The more anti-bisexual experience one has, the worse their health can be.
I feel like it's like the other way around.
Well, I think, oh God, I think people are more likely to report being mentally ill if they also are self-identify as bisexual.
Yeah,
because they love attention.
Yes, exactly. People who are mentally ill are also more likely to manufacture like Russian nesting doll sexual identities,
exactly,
with which to call attention to themselves. Anyway,
see you in hell.
Yeah.